Hello, welcome, welcome,
Hey.
welcome. Oh, that was so seamless. You just don't know. Like every time I get a seamless transition, I get so excited. Welcome everybody. We are live. I'm here with Bianca Wulwick. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Right. I'm here with Bianca, and she is going to talk about imposter syndrome. What I like about this is that I've kind of polled a few people, and I'm like, "Do you know what imposter syndrome is?" And they're like, no, never heard of it. So we know that it's kind of something new. So before we get to that, as we always do, well, who in the hell is Bianca Wulwick? Let me tell you about Bianca. Well, Bianca is a digital marketing professional, a foodie. So I got to talk about that a little bit. Like, what kind of foods do you like or do you experience with? She's a general jack of all trades, as she will say, a master of none. But I beg to differ. She knows quite a lot of information. She's also a dog mom. I saw your dog, very, very cute. She is based in San Diego by way of Denver, Colorado. And some of her notable work have been with, you guys familiar with Hello Fresh and of course Coca-Cola. She started a podcast and I love the name. We'll talk about that as well. Please Don't Kick Me Out. It's a podcast that is actually dedicated to imposter syndrome. You can also check out our interview. It's on her site, anchor.fm, and you can search Please Don't Kick Me Out. That actually aired earlier today. I'm going to go back and listen to it myself. A lot of times, you're like, I hate to hear the sound of my own voice, but that's okay. I want to hear how it all came out. And some fun facts about Bianca. She met Demi Lovato. She was in a viral video. Before we move on, tell me a little bit about that. How did you meet her and how was she?
Yeah, 4 years ago to the day is when it released. Demi Lovato, I would have considered myself kind of a fair weather fan. Sorry, Demi. But I took a lot of, so I'm a founder of Lyft. When Lyft launched in Denver, I chose Lyft over Uber. I always felt Uber was a little more creepy, sorry. So I always used Lyft. I just felt like it was more personable. The drivers, I had better conversations. I'm very much chatty Cathy, as Danica knows. And so I, as an adopter of Lyft, got the opportunity to be part of a focus group under the guise I'd never seen Undercover Lyft, but apparently that was a thing. Like they've done Shaquille O'Neal and some other like people that, I mean, obviously how are you not going to know that's Shaquille O'Neal? So I was tapped first. I'm actually wearing my name tag. So if you search Demi Lovato Lyft, you'll see it. And I'm sure Danica can even share it. It's on YouTube. But I got in the car and then I was like, no one has makeup like that. She was wearing like a newsboy cap. She said her name was Samantha. And she drove and we almost got into 4 car accidents. And it was just very, very interesting. But yeah, so I met her and then the next day we got concert tickets and I thought we were going to be like in the nosebleeds. She was touring with Nick Jonas for the Reputation tour at that time or whatever it was called. And I was this far from the stage from her and it was incredible. And she looked at me and she like thumbs up. And
That's
so
awesome.
yeah.
I love that. And look, we're starting to see some ladies, maybe some gents to come in. Hey, what's up, Rhonda? As she makes her way, and she's like, wow, that's cool. It is. I didn't know all of that, but awesome. She met her husband on Tinder, guys, right? Got married in a Las Vegas drive-through. And of course, when you go to Las Vegas, you got to have an Elvis impersonator. Stalked her page. Awesome. Also, she does a wonderful karaoke rendition of Cher's, I believe. Now, you know, anybody who says they can sing, they can do karaoke, because I love karaoke at the core of my heart. Not saying that I can sing, but I do a damn good job. But y'all got a little bit of Cher's, I believe.
Yes, and I will preface that it's usually people feel like they're being trolled. I like to like rickroll to like start the crowd. I usually do 4 songs, and then when I do this impression and the full entire song, I don't have a voice for the next day. But do you believe in life after love? But if you do that and you sing into the microphone like that, you do lose your voice. So Cher is a wonderful lady. And I actually had tickets to go see her at the beginning of the year, right before all this pandemic hit. And she was very sick and had to cancel her concert. So I was in Vegas, sans Cher. So it's my bucket list to see her. I love her so much.
Awesome. Girl, go ahead. I got to see the whole performance. And then, of course, she is a Peloton enthusiast, which is kind of the first thing I noticed about you. But let's get right into imposter syndrome, right? So for those folks who are, again, we thank you. I see Elizabeth is coming in. What's up, Jason? Thank y'all so much. Please, as always, make sure to like and subscribe to I Be Damn, but also share this video because this is some new information that I don't think a lot of people know about. So by definition, and I'll give you the Google version of imposter syndrome. It can be defined as a collection of feelings, right, of inadequacy, despite you having like, success, like you've accomplished a lot of in your life, but you still feel like a fraud. You suffer, that person, the imposter, you suffer from like self-doubt, limiting beliefs, all these different things, despite the fact that you probably are very intelligent, you're very talented, you know your job. I felt imposter syndrome. And it's, look, by the way, I'll ask you that. For myself, I really felt imposter syndrome when I got into broadcast journalism, because I did radio and I also did TV. And I was like, I know 4 years of this, I even worked for free. I'm like, I did everything. And to feel like I didn't belong here was like, what is wrong with me? Why do I feel like I'm such a fraud? So let me ask you, and you, if you can tell me your definition of imposter syndrome and how it affected you.
Yeah. So as Nika mentioned, I have a podcast about imposter syndrome. It's called Please Don't Kick Me Out. And for me, imposter syndrome reared its ugly head in a lot of my career. My first job in advertising, an advertising agency, I had a boss that told me I needed to be wary of people's perceptions of me and how it made him look. I just felt like I didn't fit in that. And so I switched into marketing, which has been more kind of my speed. And that's kind of conventionally my background. But even as a person, as a marketing director, when I got to San Diego for a Fortune 500 branch company, I felt it. I had like almost 10 years of experience, and I was very, very much deserving of that title. However, every single day I would feel like, oh my gosh, is today the day they're going to come in here and tell me like, Bianca, we figured it out. You're not meant to be here. You're not qualified, blah, blah, blah. And of course I knew that I had all of these skills in the background and all of that, but I just didn't feel, I would still feel that. Like I would still feel, even though I had the confidence in my career, I would still feel like every single day I was going to get let go. So when the pandemic hit and that finally happened, the podcast came to be from it, because please don't kick me out. That very sentence is like, please don't find out that I'm a fraud and that I'm not worthy to be here. So I started the podcast because, after a couple of beers with girlfriends or whatever, you would start to talk about, gosh, I just don't know when they're going to figure it out. I'm not supposed to be in this job. And it's a silly feeling. It's a feeling. It's paired with anxiety a lot. So in my conversations with people throughout the world, Danica is a great example as well. And that episode is aired about an hour and a half before this, and it's out everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, you name it. I find that a lot of people feel this way. It is deeply ingrained with when you're at a company that isn't serving you, when you're doing something that isn't serving you. For me, it rears its ugly head mostly when I'm doing marketing for other companies, not myself, and I'm not working on passion projects that are important to me. So for me, that's how I've realized that I need to overcome it, is to do things that are true to my soul. So everyone has a different definition and all of that. But overall, I ask the same set of questions each week to my guests about success and feeling successful. Do you fit in? Do you have it all figured out? Those questions. And everyone has a different answer. So it's been really therapeutic.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, the questions that you asked, I'm like, I never thought about it that way. In myself, I've had this conversation or monologue to myself, but when you actually sit there and you talk about it, and then talking with someone about it, we start to have relatable situations. I think that for me I didn't know what imposter syndrome was for a long time. And it wasn't until just doing doing research on my own, like, oh my God, I really felt that way. And to some extent, not saying that I still feel it, but I just start to recall situations. And even when it comes to making friends, I felt that was, when I say making friends, like maybe being around important people, like, I don't know if I should be around these people. But now, after a while, you're kind of like they're nobody. You're not saying they're nobody, but they're just like me. Thinking about when you were with Demi Lovato, right? You're like, oh my gosh, she's a celebrity, but she was very down to earth.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, when you hear imposter syndrome, and the word itself makes you feel like, what? You feel
Yeah.
like an imposter is a fraud, but it's not a mental illness.
Mm-mm.
It's not something that can be categorized in, I believe they call it the DCM or the IS something, where where they can classify you with some type of mental disorder. But I noticed what doing my research, they say that women and women of color particularly, experience it more often. But through your podcast, would you say that's the same thing? Like,
Yeah.
we find
Yeah.
evidence?
When I started it, I thought that this might just be a woman thing because I felt like maybe it's just us as being more maternal. We're more in touch with our feelings because, you know, the system says men can't have emotions or whatever. I didn't find that cisgendered white men or men really felt it unless they were LGBTQ or gender identity. So I've interviewed a few trans women and a trans man and his wife, who, you know, like they're ex-Mormon. They were on the show, HBO's We're Here. It's episode 12. It's a great episode talking about that, leaving the faith and all of that. You know, I thought that I would never interview or would never have men that identified as straight or men that would feel this feeling. But now I'm realizing that it's a lot more of, well, one, we have all this time in the pandemic, so we're looking into why we feel the way we feel. Maybe we're going to therapy, maybe we're getting the doctor appointments we need and all of that. And imposter syndrome has been kind of a buzzword now. So when I started the podcast and I would tell people or I'd ask people, do you feel this? They wouldn't understand what that meant. Because I mean, they're two really big words, imposter syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. Those are two words that feel like they have a lot of weight and merit. However, it's really, when you break it down, just this feeling of, you know, not being able to accept your accomplishments, feeling like a fraud, feeling like a failure, like those kind of feelings that in general can kind of be tied to self-esteem and anxiety. So yes, it's not a mental illness, but it's also not unique to just women.
Yes. And I will say, so through all this, of course, having to do my own research as well. So what triggers it, right? So I know, and I'm writing the book, everyone, if you I've made that comment once before. So it's going to be in a portion of my book, Imposter Syndrome, because that's a big part of my life, definitely. So I think imposter syndrome is triggered by, obviously, stereotypes, but also even like your family dynamics growing up, maybe what, in your family, maybe how the women were treated versus how the guys were treated, even culturally, in some cultures, women are supposed to be, I guess, subservient or submit. You're supposed to lessen yourself. So that, I think, also can trigger imposter syndrome.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. For me, it's weird. I mean, so I've always advocated for mental health and therapy, and I finally started going to a therapist. She had me read a book called Will I Ever Be Good Enough for the Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers? And I was reading a chapter that talked about, when you have two daughters in a narcissistic nest, the dad typically will protect the mom and not really protect the children. So, a lot of childhood trauma, working through that. But one thing that's really interesting is that children of narcissism, they tend to have two ways that they can go, high achieving or self-saboteur. And when you're high achieving, you tend to not be able to accept your accomplishments because they're never seen as real, right? So your emotions are never told that they're real. So a lot of imposter syndrome actually can stem from some childhood trauma that you might have, which is something I'm realizing. But reading that book, I was like, dang, did this person write like my podcast coming out? But
Yeah.
And I did reach out to the book author and I did thank her. I said the book was great. But that's one example. As women, we are told that we need to do all these things and societally be seen as less than and all of these different things, and we're constantly fighting for equality. And I think that also has a lot to do with it too. I felt a lot of imposter syndrome. It's interesting that in negotiations for a raise or in asking for a salary, like if a man were to say, I want this, they wouldn't have to qualify it with, but this is okay, I'll take that instead.
Right.
And women, we always have to kind of be wary of that. And so I think a lot of it is ingrained with that as well. But in my conversations with men, I find that, a lot of men feel, patriarchal pressure as well. So it's just interesting in conversations I've had.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, I think it's not necessarily on the job. I mean, you can also feel that if you are a business owner, stepping out and trying to, make your way in the world and not know if, you're talented, you have all this, what's in you, but it's like, oh, do I stand up to my competition? And I also think being a woman, we're also pitted against one another, I believe, maybe more frequently than men are because there is a seat at the table for men, whereas women, we have to fight for that seat.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'd agree with
So,
that.
so for me, I wonder, because I mean, do you ever overcome it? Is it something that you can say, I had or I experienced, but I no longer feel that way anymore? Can you, how do you overcome imposter syndrome?
For me, and I don't know if this is just me, but for me, overcoming it is basically acknowledging it. So when you feel these feelings like, okay, like very tired, is my boss going to come into my office today and fire me? Speaking positively to that anxiety and that feeling and saying like, okay, well, like what happens if that happens? For instance, like when it finally happened to me, I didn't die. The world didn't end. I was fine. I was laid off, and it's not a big deal. And when you look at things with a more positive lens of like, okay, like, well, if that happens, then what's going to happen? And also, there's a pull towards authenticity. So when you do things that are authentic to you, you lean into yourself, you are yourself. You want to be at a company or career or whatever that actually embraces what makes you unique, and that is a big piece of advice. I feel you don't want to be at a company where you're told that you need to look a certain way or dress a certain way or be a certain way. You want to be at a company that values you and can appreciate what you bring to the table and what makes you unique. So if you don't have that and you feel this every day before you go into work, then perhaps it's not a good company fit.
Right. I also feel like talking to other people. I know that, just because I'm feeling it, what about someone else? Someone else that's in the same companies or same situation as you may feel the same way and they just need an outlet. I think, i.e., the Vibe Tribe, talking to other like minded people, you're like, hey, are you feeling this way? You said you sat down with some of your friends and had this conversation. And it's not something that people are free to talk about. No one wants to talk about their failures, no one wants to talk about their inadequacies, but it's healthy because I guarantee someone else out there is feeling the same way. We have Elizabeth who made a comment, and I appreciate you participating, Elizabeth. She says, I work contracts, so I don't have to deal with this. Okay, cool. So at any point in your life, that's the question I want to ask you now. At any point in your life, have you ever, because where you are now currently, like, I mean, I can tell you now, like, I am so confident, like, you can't tell me nothing about what I do. I have so much, confidence in myself that imposter syndrome, no, not at all. Like I really feel that confident. But I do believe when I first started in this business, I did. I was like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. No one's acknowledging whether or not I'm doing well. You're getting. I mean, I actually literally told a guy. My manager told me, hey, maybe you need to think about doing something different. This may not be for you. And I was like, what? You mean? Wait a minute. I just did 4 years of college. I worked my ass off. I worked for free because in broadcast journalism, you got to do a little free work, a lot of free work, and build up your resume. And you're going to tell me that this is not something I'm supposed to do? Who are you to tell me that? So I mean, I definitely have been put in that situation where I just felt like, okay, maybe I need to rethink this. So I really want to know if anybody else in here at any point in your life, and it doesn't have to be on the job, it can be anywhere else. What about you, Bianca? Have you, outside of just a job, any other experiences where you felt like you were maybe not worthy?
Yeah, I've had some terrible boyfriends, back in my day, and dating is a great example because, meeting my husband, he's the only person that's ever allowed me to fully be myself and actually champions that. And it is so important to be with someone that doesn't want to change a single thing about you. So that for me is a great example. Or friendships, or I was in a sorority of all things. I mean, I'm a person now. I couldn't even imagine that was something I did where I paid for friendships. And guess what? I'm not friends with any of those people. So this kind of feeling of having to fit in to have what you want. I mean, it goes so against your grain. It really sucks. And I was on a podcast called Too Rich to Miss with his name's Richard Hawks, and he is a Black man, and he talks about this feeling of having to wear a mask and be less Black and be corporate in the corporate world, and it's just tiring and fatiguing. So in certain aspects, in certain ways, we as people, we are constantly having this need of approval and wanting to fit in and all of those things. And I think that sometimes we won't call it imposter syndrome necessarily, but this wanting and need to belong. I mean, it's just a human thing.
It is. Thank you. I was just going to say that. I think Brene Brown talks about it. It is about having connection and belonging. Those are just human emotions. That's what we want. We crave those things. And when you mentioned about this gentleman about how wanting to fit in, that's exactly like that's something I probably didn't mention on the podcast, but I myself having to straighten my hair every Tuesday and Thursday whenever I had to anchor, because I felt like me as in my natural state wasn't good enough. And people would tell me, well, I like your hair when it's straight. And I was like, well, why? Why is that? Why can't I be comfortable in my skin? And, I shouldn't feel ashamed to be who I am. And I think, again, I've grown out of that now where I'm like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. But at some point we do. And I think kids feel it. Kids feel that imposter syndrome, which, we look at how kids are bullied in school because maybe they don't fit in or they're not a part of the popular crowd. Come on, if you're a Gen Xer and you're in this room, come on, we all have, if you look back over your life, at some point you may have experienced it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, there's growth in everything.
Yeah. And like as a millennial, I feel like as a kid you were told, I mean, my generation was like everyone's special and unique, and we're all like special and unique or whatever. And in doing that, it almost made like everyone want to conform to fit in. And so being told that you're special your whole life, you kind of don't, that kind of falls on deaf ears. So one thing that my husband's in the military, I'm a military spouse, and my husband's a lieutenant in the Navy. And it's been interesting to move when we PCS from Denver to San Diego. He always, he says every time you move somewhere, maybe you want to change something about yourself that wasn't serving you at your last place. And so for me, when I moved to San Diego a year and a half ago, I chose to just authentically be myself. Like, I won't take a job that doesn't allow me to be who I am. I won't work somewhere. I won't have friends that don't allow me to be who I am. I don't want to compartmentalize my friendships anymore. I just want to like be myself. And I found that in being myself and championing myself and sorry, I was looking at my puppy. I was like, please don't pee on the carpet. Okay, I locked him in here with me. You good, bud?
He's very quiet.
He's very good. I gave him a bone. So I was like, because he's teething. So I was like, okay, chew on that and not the loud toys, because he tends to do that. In doing that, I feel like I've attracted more people into my tribe by being who I am, which is really a good thing. And also, there's a lot of power and confidence in it, as you kind of mentioned, where you are like confident in yourself and you're confident in like what you can bring to the table now, because you are not putting on a mask or, conforming. You're just being who you are.
Awesome. And the question you asked me, I'm going to ask you now. Do you feel successful?
I do actually feel quite successful, because for me, how I define success is just waking up every day with gratitude and being happy. And a lot of the pandemic, I feel like there's so much to be negative about. I've found that positivity and just kind of leaning into yourself and like being yourself every day and being proud of your accomplishments, it's a really good feeling. So I feel successful because I've got a happy marriage and I feel really good about where I'm at in life. And on paper, I've had a pretty cool career. I mean, you were reading my about me to me, and I was like, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah. I mean, we got to really and truly kind of, feel comfortable in our own skin, and it may take a little while. I mean, I can tell you some of the rough years in everyone's life, middle school, high school. But I think once you get past that, you have to start living for yourself, because before you're kind of surrounded by all these different images. And if you watch, I told you about TV, you're surrounded by all the images in media. Rhonda Chauvin, what's up, Rhonda? She said, I have self-esteem issues, but I'm learning through counseling that I cannot change the things I cannot control. Come on, it only drags you down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
amen.
absolutely true.
Oh yeah, definitely. So with that said, I have no more other comments or questions, but everybody, I want to see, give me some fire, fire, fire. It's time for rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, cool. Okay. So let's see. We have any more questions? All right, exactly. Count your blessings is what she said. So number one, and the fact that you're from Denver and now you live um in San Diego. Now, I don't know if you heard an accent from me, but a lot of times people who live in the South, they always say, you guys have an accent. So I want to see how you pronounce this word. How do you pronounce Pecan?
Pecan? Pecan?
Yeah.
I'm originally from Minnesota, so
Okay.
a lot of these can somewhat be long. Bourdain, please. Let me grab my puppy. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
He's just scratching the door, so. All right. Here we go.
So you say pecan? Oh, he's so cute.
I think pecan. I'll go pecan.
Pecan. Okay, so I say pecan. Pecan. So you say again, say it one more time.
Pecan.
So you say pecan, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then I've heard, of course, some people say pecan and they say pecan, like they really pronounce the pecan. All right. So what is your favorite form of self-care?
Bubble bath with a bath bomb, specifically a bath bomb that has a surprise in it because I'm sort of a child at times. So there's these, I got served a really cool Instagram ad that has these like Yoshi eggs and they like a Mario toy comes out of it. Or there's a couple of teenagers that created a company that has these little bath bombs that these little charms come out of. I don't need the thing inside of it. It's just like the surprise. So that and chicken nuggets.
Oh, I love chicken nuggets. Oh my God, I love chicken nuggets. Oh, go ahead. What do you make your own chicken nuggets or do you buy them?
Well, I bought an air fryer, which I've used the crap out of to the point where we got another air fryer. So dino nuggets are a big hit here. But also I love me a McDonald's chicken nugget.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. We're supposed to be not eating McDonald's, but I do like their chicken nuggets. If I go, that's the only thing I'm really eating anyway. So, all right. And don't tell me, ew, Danica, you know what's in that? Don't tell me.
Don't care. I know it's bad. Let me
let me just have my guilty. That's my guilty pleasure. Okay, so number 3, what is the last act of kindness you performed? The random act of kindness.
So one thing I do, you can see my glue gun in the back here. I'm a crafter. I like to make these hair bows. And one thing that I do is I keep people's addresses in my phone. And if they've got a girl or they're just someone I want to brighten their day, I like to send a little snail mail and pop them in the mail for them. And I don't expect anything in return. I don't expect money for them, but I just like to brighten people's day by doing that.
Oh, that's so awesome. Let's see what everybody else is saying. Let's see. What you saying, oh, really about? What does that mean? I don't know. That's a comment. All right. So number 4, what is the one thing you would tell your 10-year-old self? 10 years old. I've asked this question before, but like your young adult, but I'm talking about 10 years old.
I would tell my younger self that it's okay that you don't fit in and that you are someone that is loud and somewhat disruptive, and that the things that you feel ashamed about because people don't want to play with you on the playground or you're not, you don't really fit in, it doesn't matter because those are the things that are going to make you who you are when you're an adult. And just hold true to who you are. Don't try to fit in.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, so I'm getting flack from my chicken nugget comment.
I also like a Wendy's spicy nug. Those are good too.
Now that's my go-to. I will say that, but I mean, if I'm not going way down to Wendy's, maybe I'll stop over and they have their $5 meals. So, all right, maybe I'm revealing too much, but hey, I love chicken nuggets. I'm sorry, I love them. Number 5, and this is the last one. What one decision in your life would you go back and change?
I would have met my husband sooner. I ghosted him, and then he found me on another app, and I should have just gone on that date.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I could have been with the right person sooner, but it's all good. It worked out the way it was supposed to.
That's right. All right, so awesome. I love it. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Bianca. Of course, she is on Please Don't Kick Me Out. And I am your host, Nika Foley, as always. Make sure to come back every Monday at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And tell your mom and them, all go ahead and share this and like and subscribe. I'm just excited that I'm able to meet people like Bianca. We were talking earlier about how before, when she first got started, she was, asking her friends or maybe begging her friends to be a part of this, and now you are attracting people to your podcast. And I think the very same thing. Now, granted, I've been at it maybe a little bit longer, and I kind of used to harass the people in my community. Hey, come on over. You have so much to share to folks, and I would love if you could kind of share the information. And now I'm getting folks to reach out to me, or it's just becoming much easier. And I don't want to hold this information to myself. I want to be able to share with others. So again, I thank you for coming in. I'm glad we did the podcast swap. So
Yeah.
check her out. Please don't kick me out. She's on all available podcast outlets that you can check her out. It's anchor.com. Please don't kick me out. And did I get some? Let me see what's going on. I got these people sending me messages now. All right. And that is going to conclude today's show. And be careful, be safe wherever you are.